All right, guys. So today what we're gonna work on is a haircut that's been very trendy lately. We see it on all the fashion runways. We see it on our favorite actors. Today we're gonna work on a haircut called a shag. With this haircut specifically, what's gonna be very different is the idea of disconnection versus connection. So in this haircut, we're gonna be disconnecting a lot of the lengths, but it's still gonna be very visually connected. And I think that's what makes a really good haircut, is the intention behind what you're doing in every zone of the head, where you're disconnecting certain lengths. And all of it comes down to head shape and face shape, right? Like, so for example, with Sergey here, I noticed that the back of his head is somewhat flat. So in the crown of his head, which is this area, I want to build a lot of weight and keep a lot of this weight. But right where the occipital is down to his nape, I want to remove a lot of that length by using very short lengths in here that disconnect from everything else. But by the end of the haircut, when you see it styled, what you'll notice is that it still works very well. It still has a lot of balance. There's still a lot of symmetry being created, and it looks very visually connected, which I think is going to be the main point of this haircut. So first thing we want to do is think about moisture control. We're creating a lot of sections, we're separating a lot of the head zones, and the cleanest way to do this is to make sure the hair is saturated well, and that way you can achieve the cleanest sections possible. When wetting the hair, I don't just want to wet the surface of the hair. I actually want this water to seep into the roots of the hair. So you'll see me lifting up a lot of these lengths to make sure I'm getting it internally, and that way the hair is saturated properly. Now that the hair is saturated, what we're gonna have to worry about is separating these head zones into different compartments. This will allow you to simplify the haircut, to not be as overwhelmed, and to achieve the results that you're looking for. First section we're gonna worry about is actually a profile, which is gonna split the head into its two even halves. And I'm gonna carry it all the way throughout the back, separate the back panel, and now I just have the back to worry about. The back panel gets a little bit more intricate, but I'll show you what I mean when I get into sectioning. And this is where a lot of that disconnection comes into play. Another part of the haircut that we're gonna divide is gonna be this side panel here. Okay, this side panel is gonna allow me to work on the sides separately from the back. Again, we can use this connection. And the last section I wanna separate is the fringe. I wanna preserve a lot of this length in the fringe because, like I mentioned earlier, I already liked the way that this was sitting. So those are the sections we'll worry about. Now let's get into it. All right, so first section we're gonna do is the profile section. A good way to achieve this section is to actually use the bridge of his nose, come to the hairline, and just follow straight back. Split with your comb, middle finger in place in the back here so that the hair is sturdy. And that's your profile there. All right, so the next section we're gonna worry about is separating the back from the sides, which is known as your radial section. What this is gonna allow me to do is actually separate the highest point of Sergey's head into the crown and into the back. The back of his haircut, I think, is actually the most important area of this haircut. And it's what I wanna focus on the most because this is where I'll create the most amount of disconnection. So for the back of his head, I used a radial section, and I also used a zigzag pattern to isolate the crown from the bottom of his neck. This way I'm able to take a lot of the lengths in the occipital a lot shorter and create that disconnection going from short to long, internal to the external. And in the crown, I chose to use the zigzag because I'm gonna go round all throughout, vertically as well as horizontally. This way I can use a lot of these longer lengths to blend into the shorter lengths without you noticing a very obvious disconnected layer. When it gets to the sides, I simply just isolated the sides of his head going into the fringe. A lot of these lengths I want to retain, so the side panel that I isolated actually becomes very simple to me. And at the top, I isolated the apex because these lengths will be taken quite a bit shorter. So that's the sectioning, guys. This is actually making it a lot simpler for me because I'm no longer overwhelmed with my haircut process. I know exactly which areas I want to tackle first. And when it comes to deciding where to start first, I would say start with the troubled areas first. What I noticed with Sergey is I liked the way that the sides and the front sat even when he first came in. And I noticed a lot of bulk and roundness and a loss of shape in the back, so that's where I'm gonna start. All right, so first thing we're gonna tackle is this back panel over here. As you can see, everything below his occipito has been isolated. And the way I wanna approach this is by actually using a feather razor. It's like an in-between of like a straight blade and like a point cutting technique. So this is gonna create a lot of texture in the hair without causing too much breakage. When we talk about shape, what I wanna do with this bottom panel here is actually create a square shape horizontally so I can keep more of these lengths longer in the corners, but I wanna create a round shape vertically. And the reason I wanna do that is so that I can create more texture and softness as this falls down and sits naturally. And what I wanna make sure I'm doing is I'm not grabbing too much hair in my fingers. What you wanna do is only grab the hair between your first two knuckles because that's where you have the most amount of tension. And what I mean by that is, for example, like the comb gets through the bottom part, but it's not gonna get through the top part. So that's how you can assess where the most tension is. Elevate these lengths. So because we're working square, section 2 travels into section 1. I see my guide, let the guide drop. And remember, section 2 into section 1. And with this razor, I'm actually moving in a C motion so that I don't create any blunt lines. So we're at the last section. What I want to do is actually over direct this last section, not into my previous, but into my previous, so that I can keep even more length. We want to carry those disconnected lengths into the top to be able to create that visual connection, even though we're working with this connection. So what I mean by that is, you can see the lengths that we cut actually reach out this far, but the uncut lengths actually reach out this far. So just look at where my disconnected lengths end up dropping off. See, it drops right there, but I have all this excess right here. So I can see my disconnected length in there. I actually want to lift past that. And this is where I'm going to create my next guide. A lot of our decision-making process comes down to 3 different things: choice of length, suitability, styling. So what I'm doing right now has everything to do with choice of length. And what that really means is the length that I'm deciding to choose gives the back of the head, which is what we're working on right now, a specific identity, right? Like this does not belong to the top. This does not belong to the sides. We're only concerned about how this suits the back of the head. Because we're working with this connection, we don't have to worry about connecting these lengths into the top and making sure it's all the same length. We're choosing to use these different lengths to complement Sergey's head shape, his face shape, the overall look, and just his overall aesthetic. And opposite from what we did at the bottom, we're actually not following a square horizontal shape. I actually want more movement and fluidity through the top, so I'm choosing to use something more round. And when you guys are executing your cutting line, another thing I want to mention is to use the comb for reference. Right now the comb is straight on his head, and I want to come right off the base, which means there's no over direction, there's no elevation. I'm coming directly off of the head, and I can ensure that I'm cutting a round cutting line. Now that we're done the back panel, we've moved on to the sides. And with the side, what I want to do is similar to what we did in the back, where I take these internal lengths much shorter and keep these externals much longer. What this is going to allow me to do is tighten up the sides of his head and create more length going towards the outside. And like we mentioned before, because of the broader forehead and the slimmer jawline, we want to actually accentuate these longer lengths to complement his face shape. So if we move on to the sides here, I've already isolated a panel. I want to drop some of these hairs so that I have more control over the hair. Drop that. And throughout the sides, I actually want to follow the head shape. And just keep in mind, guys, you don't have to be cutting everything right away. What I've even done is left all the externals in the back on its own. Haven't touched it because I know by the end of the haircut, once it dries, I could always go back into it and refine it that way. Same thing, following the head shape, elevate. I'm gonna fix that because I don't like the tension in there. I can see my guide, let those drop off. All right, so now that we're done the back and the sides, let's move on to the top. Because as you guys can tell, we're gonna leave the fringe for the very end. But because what we're gonna end up doing is actually using shorter lengths in here while keeping these still fairly long, I wanna clip this back panel away so that these hairs don't get mixed up and there's no confusion. So let's do that just so we avoid any mistakes. So now that we have that separated, let's take the clips off of the top here. Let's resaturate it. And even though these are gonna be styled more forward, I wanna keep these lengths away from the fringe because that's where the disconnection is gonna happen. So like we said, here's our guide. Okay, we don't necessarily need to follow this same cutting line. I actually want to take it quite a bit shorter. Over here, we're going slightly more round, taking these lengths closer to the front, shorter, and that way you'll notice more texture sitting on the fringe. Gonna split that section that we just cut. And horizontally, we're actually going triangular. So I want to bring section 3 into section 1. Okay, these corners are going to retain the most amount of length if we grab them properly. All right, so now we're done layering the top. As you can see, there's slightly more texture in the front. It doesn't sit as heavy as it was sitting before. And now that we're at the last part, we're on the fringe. This is where a lot of that personalization comes in. So I think this becomes very subjective with what you want to do. You could take it a little bit shorter. Obviously not too short because some of these lengths still reach a good distance forward. But I think this is where you can have a little more fun with it, add a little bit more creativity to it. But I like the way it sits, to be honest with you. I think it suits Sergey very well. And I don't want to change too much. So I'll touch it up, play it by ear, and I'll get into the drying process. And once it is dry, that's where we're gonna refine some more. Just removing any corners that I see, softening the weight a little bit. And again, I'm over directing everything to the first section because I wanna preserve that face frame. All right, so we're done with the haircut process. I actually don't even mind the way it looks right now. I think Sergey's hair looks sick even with just a little bit of water in it. But now we're gonna apply some product, style it up a little more, make it look a little bit more runway worthy. And yeah, I wanted to address product knowledge because I myself struggle with it. I wanna dive deeper into it, get better at it. But I think many barbers struggle with it as well. I think we're just so used to using like a clay and a pomade, but there's so many creams and potions and milks and all this sort of stuff out there that I want to dive deeper into. With Sergey's hair, it's fine. It's not too fine, it's not too thick. It's like right in the middle, which actually makes it perfect for this look. But I think it could use some cream in it because it tends to get a little frizzy as it dries. So let's throw some in there, we'll style them up. I'll place a couple styling clips and we'll see how this turns out. So we have our blow dryer, we have our diffuser. What you want to make sure you're doing is using speed setting 1 and heat setting set to 0 or cold if you have that option. Another thing to keep in mind is try not to touch the hair too much because the natural heat from your hands will cause this to frizz. Okay, so just try not to touch it. Okay, so we completed our shag on Sergey. I really like how this turned out. I like how it frames his face. And I like the choice of length that we decided to use as well. We can see that the shorter lengths internally actually suit him very well as they get longer externally. So let's take some pictures of him. Let's see how these end results turn out.